Invincible episode 2.
Yes. No
I
more
know,
edging with the title card.
Yeah, I know I'm going to say it a lot. I'm so happy this show's back. And also, I'd like to double down on my theory regarding
Yes.
the title card from
Yes.
last week, that it was going to break away to show a blue and black logo foreshadowing his blue and black suit. I am absolutely spot on, and I will not hear otherwise.
I don't disagree at all. I saw it this week, and a bit more falls off, and I'm like, right, Connor's right. That's what they're going to do.
The end of this series is going to be him donning the blue and black suit for sure.
It's going to, him in the blue and black, and it's going to be like him getting over the fact that he's Omni-man's son, and he's just actually his own person.
So we've got a lot of interesting setup done this week, and what this show does really, really well is it manages to do setup without it feeling like filler bullshit. Yeah. So, like, the main threads this week were we get a little bit more information about the humans that were saved on Mars in season 1.
Yes, that we kind of forgot
you
about.
Probably hadn't forgotten about that much.
No,
I'd completely forgotten about it, and I was like, "What do I recognize?" And then they said, "Oh, just send Invincible again." I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, Mark went to Mars for a mission. I forgot about that." And then you have obviously the guy who had the parasites all over him, acting really weird. And he went to the bathroom, and he was a Martian. And then he was clearly worried he was about to get executed.
Yeah.
So he got sacked and sent home.
Well, yeah, it's like he's trying to act human, but he doesn't understand. He's like, in any situation you have this, they take things literally.
Humans.
Yeah, and it's like he takes everything literal. So, like at the end, it's like, "Oh, we'll put you on sick leave or whatever, so you can get your head straight." And then he looks in the mirror and he's like checking if his head's straight. Like he's taking everything literally, and like you say, thinks he's going to get executed.
And he then obviously goes on to announce himself as a hero after binging lots of documentaries about the real world superheroes, and announce himself as the Shapesmith.
Which, I'll be honest, I'm so annoyed, but like I think because it's so much had gone on in the episode before that point, Shapeshift showed up, and I was like, oh, cool, it's another. They're adding someone else into the Guardians or whatever to help. And then it clicked when he was explaining where he came from. I was like, oh, wait, this is the Martian guy. He's not even, like, he's faking it. But, I mean, see how that goes for him.
We got more of Eve trying to do what she kind of gave up being a superhero to do, which kind of be a humanitarian person. She fixes up an apartment block. She goes to see her mother, gives her mother food, gives her a golden apple, and tells her to sell it and tell her dad to stop being such a weird egomaniac and just let her help out her family. And her dad continues, no matter what he may or may not have said that ended up being fair. He does it in such a way where I just want to slap him upside the head.
He's just a dick.
Yes,
father.
100%. But I think the big kind of story this episode was still how Mark and Debbie are dealing with the aftermath of Nolan.
Yeah.
And how Mark is just desperate to prove he's not Nolan's son.
Yeah.
And Debbie is just a wreck.
She doesn't know what to do with herself.
We're getting a lot of foreshadowing of a drinking problem.
Yes.
We got a little bit in the first episode where like she had a wine glass and there was bottles everywhere, and then she like poured it away. But then they're showing off a house, and she gets flashbacks to a husband who deserved a punch in the mouth berating his wife for no fucking reason. And then she was just getting flashbacks to how Nolan treated her.
Yeah.
So then she goes home and she goes to get a glass of wine instantly. And it was really interesting because there was a lot of foreshadowing with this as well. The beginning of the episode, Mark comes down to get his morning coffee, and this cupboard door won't close. 3 times. Annoying. 1, 2, 3, then he gives up with it. Then we move on a little bit with the episode. We get to her getting ready to show this house, and you've got her trying to get this thing to stay closed. We only see her close it 3 times, but you hear it keep going for a bit longer. And then she obviously breaks down at her work and she goes home, and then the same cupboard again, 1, 2, 3, still doesn't work, and then she just flips it, and it's this whole rule that you see a lot in writing of do it in threes.
Mm.
So we see the same interaction happen 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
and on the third time, you get a resolution of her just finally snapping, and it shows how close to the edge she is with everything, and how it's all too much.
Yeah.
Um, but like I said, it's just loads of setting up. We've got more set up with where's Donaldson come back from? My man got blown up.
Yeah. Which he doesn't realize why that was weird.
No,
I'm saying it's clones.
I can only assume so.
Like he obviously has clones of him, which they yeah, it must be some sort of cloning thing. Maybe they've learned from the twins.
Yeah, either that or he's already interfering with the multiverse.
Maybe.
We got Mark having to go and answer for his father's crime in Atlantis,
Yeah.
which also gives I forget what they're called, basically the World Superhero Agency, access to something that clearly doesn't work well for Mark in that creature's big scream that really hurt Mark. And
Hmm.
he's like, I want the boys in R&D looking at this, because as much as Cecil claims he trusts Mark, and he does I do believe Cecil genuinely believes that Mark is better than his father and he can trust him. But at the
Yeah.
same time, he's like, I'm not going to get caught with my pants down again.
Well, yeah, that's just governments always have something
Yeah.
in their back pocket.
But we're also getting little bits of Mark being quite scary.
Yeah. Like
When
on
he
that
went,
edge of
yeah. So he got sent to Midnight City, which looked fucking awesome. Because Darkwing was apparently back in action, and of course Omni-Man obliterated Darkwing.
Yeah.
And we find out it's actually Darkwing's sidekick who's gone fucking psycho and is now murdering people. And he trapped in like the shadow dimension, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
And he's like, even I wouldn't stay here too long, but you're staying here forever. And he's trying to goad Mark, and Mark just grabs him. And this is such a good artistic choice, because they could have shown like Mark's arm tensing to show how strong a grip he had on him. But
Mm.
instead of doing that, they made Mark look really relaxed and
Yeah.
had Darkwing showing all the tension to show that Mark isn't even trying and you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And he pulls him in, and he's like, who do you think they'll eat first? And just the most, he's like you said, I'm Omni-Man's son. You have no idea what I am capable of. I'm just like, I think Mark scares himself a little bit. He's having like an
Yeah.
identity crisis in such a visceral way. And he's kind of flip flopping between like the stages of grief of like anger and acceptance and bargaining. He's like bargaining because he's trying to fix stuff by just being a superhero who does what he's told. And
Mm-hmm.
then you've obviously got that anger where it's like, you don't know what I'm capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the acceptance where it's like, no, I'm not my dad. I'm just trying to do my best.
Yeah.
And it's like
He's
this
really
kind of,
struggling.
it's like a roll of the dice as to where does Mark end up at the end of this? Does he end up accepting it? Does he just turn into his dad by trying not to be his dad?
Mm.
Or does he just become like a pawn of the government who just does what he's told because he's too scared to think?
Yeah. I mean, it was very interesting to see him. Like, obviously, they did it in the Shadow Realm where Cecil couldn't hear. And it's like, suddenly he kind of shows. It's almost like he's, okay, you guys are all scared that I'm the Omni-Man's son. This is what it would look like if I did that. Also, kind of like him going a step too far or allowing himself to go that way. Hopefully, in a way that then he's like, he then realizes again, okay, that's not who I am, and I don't do that.
Yeah.
I wonder if that'll something like that'll happen again, and he'll have that realization of, holy shit, that is me doing what my father would do. I can't like act that way.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly what we saw in Atlantis later on. When the
Yeah.
Beast got free, when Cecil's rockets came in,
Yeah.
and the Beast was like starting to kill Atlanteans, Cecil was like, just leave it. You went there on good faith and they betrayed that. And he's like, no, that's what my dad would do, so I'm not leaving them.
Mm-hmm.
And he went down, he saved them, he eviscerated this beast in such a brutal way.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then at the end, after like the resolution, and Mark finds his mum in tears, and they have the cuddle, and like we're getting stuff kind of ready for the next episode. We get a cutaway to our interdimensional Hopper in a different universe interrogating Mark.
Well, yeah, we jumped to suddenly a Mark bound up in some facility, and then you can hear the interdimensional guy, and it's just like starts asking him questions and wants to know how he was caught.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was very cool how they then portrayed this version of an evil Mark. And you could tell on like he's explaining how they beat Omni-man. And he's like a smirk of like, well, it cost him half of Europe though. And then he's like, well, then they just wore me down till I had to sleep.
I had to sleep, and then they swooped in and got me. Which I think is why the notion of two of them is so much scarier. Because if they really need to, they can just do 12-hour shifts, and they can cause so much chaos in them 12 hours while the other one's resting. There's not a lot you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's made very clear it's an alternate universe by Cecil and Davidson being women.
Yeah, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, it's just one of them really
Female
easy ways to instantly just go, yeah, this is a different place.
Do you know what was weird? Because I've just watched The Boys, and then we've just watched Gen V. Female Cecil looked like the CIA woman.
There's a little bit of a vibe there, yeah.
I was like, there's the same vibe there, and I know it's probably not intentional, but it gave off the same.
And then he's like, "Don't worry, I'm not here to hurt you." And they're like, well, "Who are you then?" And he's like, "I'm his problem." And then just walks through his portal and he disappears.
Yeah. Clearly setting up this idea that he is gathering information he can on how best to beat Invincible.
100%. I'm very excited to see where the rest of the season goes. Obviously, you've got Rex Blode now being thrown to the side. He's not the big boy in the Guardians anymore. Duplicate is all over Immortal.
I thought that was interesting that they decided to do that.
It was like a replication of what happened when Eve found out that Rex was cheating on her. She was like talking with one version of Kate, and then Kate like couldn't concentrate. It's the exact same thing. What I will say is the internet's been cooking Rex because obviously he's just been a loudmouth dipshit the entire time.
Yeah.
And then people who clearly read all the comics have just gone, I can't wait for all of the internet to start loving him. So clearly there's a big redemption to his character.
Something tells me
that, or he's just some such Giga Chad stuff that everyone's like, I don't care that he's a dick. He's fucking awesome.
Yeah, something tells me because it's now happening to him, he has a bit of a redemption arc. Yeah,
100%. But for 2 episodes in, I never want it to end. I love this show so much. And I'm so happy to hear that their plan is to never have to wait more than a year for the next season.
Yeah, they've said that.
So touch wood, we will always have more Invincible right around the corner.
Yeah, which will be really good.